Got it.
Hello, I'm joined today by Joseph Hunton. He was one of my trainers, and I recently took a class where he was training the trainers for the Hellerwork training of 2022, starting November 2nd. And we're also joined by notable teacher Albert Feinstein. He has some good questions for Joseph. And I thought I would invite you to start with an abbreviated intro I do in my NIA work, if you are open to it, Joseph.
Let's do it.
All right, so first you can place your hands anywhere, but you're honoring yourself, so you can close your eyes, take a deep breath, and just giving yourself some awareness, some recognition, some thanks. And breathing into that. And then your arms extend out just a little bit. And this is honoring your peers, your classmates, your friends, giving thanks to them. And then you raise your arms up a little bit higher. And this is thanks to all of your teachers. Old and young, peers, yourself, all of your teachers. And then you bring your arms even higher and you give thanks to the universe, to love. And then you bring that all down back into yourself. So I have a few questions for you today.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Fire away. I'm ready.
Well, I thought it'd be fun to start back in the beginning and get your take of what your training was like and what are some of your favorite memories from your training.
All right. Well, I really have to go back a ways here. It was 97 when I started my training, and my trainers were Don St. John and Diane Naismith and Lonnie Fox and Helen Jarvis. And we held the intensives at a retreat center just across the border in Canada. Half my class was Canadian and half US. And I thought it was perfect. It was a residential setting, so we all stayed at the same retreat center. We had like dorm rooms with several of us in the same room, and we lived together, we ate together, we took classes together, we laughed, we cried, we really bonded as a family. And if you want to bring up people's stuff, put them all in a house together. But no, it was a great experience, great trainers. I really felt like we got a very comprehensive introduction to Hellerwork and foundational principles. It's interesting, I often kind of think back to that as I look at the training now and see, the threads that have continued along that timeline, and also see the shifts and how we are teaching, a bit differently now. We focus a little more on the fundamentals and the real techniques of body work and the techniques of touch and feel. Those were all present in my training. I think we've just broken it down and clarified it, and in some ways kind of made it more digestible.
What do you think led to that shift, or when did the shift really occur? Do you have any idea on that one?
Um, that's a good question, because we've had so many different trainers over the years, and they've all brought their own particular personalities and interests and attitudes about what the work is about and how you do the work, that it's really been, quite an organic kind of process of how things have moved and shifted. When we initially began to put together this latest format that we're teaching at Universal College in Omaha, we spent a good 2 years or better just putting it together before we actually had any students in the classroom. So we took the time to look at all the different pieces of what we were holding as the Hellerwork process, and tried to break it down into a very layered and strategic kind of process of how to go through it. And we had a great team to put that together. We had, some great longtime practitioners in Jake Schultz and Anne-Marie Duchesne, and Dan Bienenfeld was kind of our leader at that point, and he really brought in that Rolfing perspective, that lineage perspective, and so many other people that contributed to putting those pieces together. And I think with that ability to kind of stop and refocus and reframe and really be deliberate, it put together this format that, like I said, is kind of a bit more transparent. I think that's maybe a good word for it. I remember in my training there was this kind of aura of mystery, like there's this magic process going on, and we'd watch, Don and Diane and Lonnie and Helen do sessions, and we didn't get this kind of step-by-step, start here, go here. And, we got the goals and, what we were ultimately trying to get to, but we would just kind of have to, I don't know, suss out, intuit how that process was playing out. The other thing that I think is pertinent is that, we're in a different time and place. We're, well into the new millennium, and we still have students of all ages, but we get a lot of younger students who grew up in a different time and a different consciousness, and more information. They have grown up in the information age, where all they have to do is do a few clicks, and they have, tons and tons of information in front of them, including videos and graphics. And so we realized that we needed to bring more of that into the way we taught. And I think that's also been a piece of the evolution.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm always amazed every time I get like a synopsis of what went actually into this and the amount of work. And I know there's a lot of gratitude out there.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really way more work than I had planned on. If I knew what I was getting into, I may not have done it. But yeah, a ton of preparation, a lot of time, a lot of dedication, really just an amazing spirit of giving from from that group that put that training together. Lots and lots of hours, unpaid hours, and it was, you know, fun being with the group and really being close, and you know, hard and frustrating, and we banged heads, and we you know, had disagreements, and we came to a place where we felt like we had a good product, a good training to present.
What were some of your coping mechanisms and healing practices that helped carry you through?
A few cocktails after the meeting. No, seriously, it was really our focus to keep Hellerwork alive, to train real quality, competent practitioners. And we kept coming back to that. You know, we could have our disagreements, and we could have our different ways of doing things. But we kept coming back to, what do we think would be the best learning experience for the students?
Think of back to when you first stepped in front of your first class when you were doing the training. What was going through your head after all that prep work? It was finally here, you had a class.
Well, I remember one of the first things I said. I taught in intensive 2 of that first training we did in Omaha. And we had everybody sitting in a circle. I had coerced Don St. John and Diane to come and teach with me, because they were really my mentors, and I wanted them there for leadership and inspiration, and the fact that I knew that they knew everything. And the first thing I said was, I just looked around at all the students and I said, I have been waiting a long time to sit in this circle with you all, and I am overjoyed to be here.
I'm giving that a moment.
Yeah.
As I think a lot of people talk about Hellerwork, where it gets evolved into Joseph work or into Greer work. What did you find that you evolved into a certain type of teacher, and what do you feel like some of your mold is that helped mold you?
Yeah. We talk about that a lot in the training, that, you know, we're going to teach you the fundamentals, and we're going to teach you the process, and then we expect you to take it and make it your own. And I think for me, you know, one of the challenges to go back and teach after, you know, I had been practicing probably 18 years or something before I started teaching at the training, was to go back to that kind of beginner's mind, and realize that, you know, the way I do the series now is, you know, has a fair amount of differences from the way I was taught and the way that we are teaching it now. And I really had to kind of push aside some of my own preferences and my own different techniques and modalities that I have melded into the way I work, and just kind of present the most kind of clean, basic Hellerwork series that I could. You know, as far as my development, I think that, you know, I come from a psychology background. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and that was always significant piece of how I worked, creating space for that, emotional, that emotional flavor and that space within my practice. The other thing that really influenced me is early on, I did extensive training in visceral and cranial manipulation, which is, a very different modality in terms of, it's a very soft touch. It's much more subtle kind of art. And I like working in that mode. I like that, getting deeper into the body and having to listen and palpate at a different level of awareness. So that really influenced how I practice in my office. And to me, I've got the same goals. I'm trying to balance a body within the field of gravity. And but I can use a bunch of different ways to get there. And depending on what I find in the client and the energetic or the personality of the client, I can pull out these different tools and move them into the session. So yeah, that's kind of how I developed. And it was really clear to me that at some point later in the training, I could start to talk about those kinds of things and even show a little bit of technique and a little bit of, listening modality or technique, but that's not what I was going to be teaching the students.
Yeah, I imagine that takes a lot to continuously check in and be like, oh wait, let's simplify.
It does. I remember when I was doing my first series demo, it was at that first training, and Don and Diane were watching me, and I was, going through the I don't know, the first session or the second session, and I looked over at Don and I said, is this working? Am I, and he stood up and he walked over and he addressed the students and he said, well, the first thing that you should know is that this is really quite a sophisticated, demo here. And I turned to Don, I said, is it too sophisticated? He goes, no. But he wanted the students to get that, you're not going to walk up to your table and do exactly what you're seeing Joseph do.
Yeah. How was it evolving into, because Hellerwork training, there's so many different teachers, and it's really like a group setting, and it sounds like you had a little bit of time beforehand to get to know each other, but what was it like being a part of a training team?
Well, it was very much a ongoing process. We always considered it, like an unfinished book, that the training was continuing to evolve as we taught. And, one of the things we would do when we're at the intensives is all the trainers would stay in the same house. And each evening, we'd sit down and make dinner and we'd talk about, how the day went and how individual classes went. And, in those early days, Dan Bienenfeld was one of our, major mentors, and he would give us feedback about, how we taught and ways to, engage the students more or be more clear about how we're presenting material or how to get our ego out of the way or, on and on and on. So really, we kept working as we taught, and we would make notes, and we began the training manual, and we would add pieces to it, and which with each time that the same class was taught, it would be taught at a little higher level.
I had to mute for dog barking. Can you remember a moment or a memory, either when you were able to come in and help a teammate, or one where a teammate kind of came in and helped you from the trainings?
Yeah, I can actually remember many moments. You know, when the team is working really well, you know, it's a unit. It's truly a team, and we are backing each other up. You know, small instances when, you know, I would be teaching a class, and I would be talking about something, and then, you know, I just start to notice my mind was, you know, going blank in terms of, you know, where am I going to go from here? And I turn to Dan or Anne or Anne Marie, and I'd say, you know, what would you add to that? You know, what do you think about that? And invariably they would, you know, pick up some thread, or they would add another piece. And, you know, in my mind, I'm going, oh yeah, that's right. I have to remember to talk about that, and go down that direction as well. So there was all those little moments, you know, as we move through the day, that you know, we would work together, and we would back each other up, and we would contribute to the other person's class. And I have a very vivid memory of teaching a movement class, and Anne Marie was assisting me, and the class was 60 minutes. And at about 40 minutes, I was like, I don't have anything else. I have taught all the material that I have prepared for this class. So I kind of sidled up to Anne Marie, and I went, I've run out of things to do. Do you have anything? And she like popped right in, and she said, okay, now we're going to do this. And she taught the last 20 minutes. And afterwards, I was like, oh, I'm so grateful. I feel so supported that you were able to do that. And that's a great feeling, because it's a challenging process to teach, you know, multiple times in a day, day after day. And to feel that support just gives you a lot of confidence, and allows you, or I would say allows me as a teacher, to be more creative, you know, because I know if I miss something, or if I head down the wrong road, that there's somebody there to back me up.
That's a good, give me a warm feeling. Carrie would love to know what you think the essence of a trainer is.
Oof. That could be a long discussion. You know, I often think of teaching at the training as being an extension of me as a practitioner. So, you know, really we're all teachers, because we are teaching our clients about their bodies, and about movement, and about sensation. And that's really the same things we're teaching at the training. So to get into that space of really being present with your client and extending that into a classroom, it's kind of like you have to get a little larger, and you have to radiate your energy, and you have to open your heart a little bit larger, and you create that space just like you do in your sessions of, safety and confidentiality and trust and open-heartedness and non-judgmental. And you then hold that space as you present the material to the students. And we all have different ways in which we do that, according to our own strengths and our own kind of cognitive processes. And there's an added piece of leadership, or I think of it as authority, kind of holding authority. It doesn't mean that you're a dictator. It doesn't mean that you have to, be a disciplinarian. It means that you assume that space of being in authority in that class. And that's everything from, insisting that you have the students' attention, to dealing with, little things that come up and stepping in and saying, no, we're not going to do that right now. We're doing this now, and we can come back and do that later if we need to. So you have to keep the direction of the class heading to the objective of the class. So there's all that. And then, your basic kinds of people skills come into play, to present material in a informative, light, creative, fun, something that is going to pique the students' curiosity. All those things come into play, and we all have them, in different degrees and different strengths in different areas. But kind of creating and holding that space as you do in your sessions, and then expanding it into a larger space.
That might answer another question from another person that said, guess who? And I hope I get the wording right, but how do you make it look so easy and do it so well?
I have no idea who might have asked that question. Well, I do believe that, I'm kind of a natural teacher. My brain, just the way I'm wired, has a very kind of logical, sequential order. That's the way I think. So I can present material in that kind of fashion. I'm good at kind of figuring out where's the beginning, what's the middle, where's the end point that we're trying to get to. As a general contractor for 17 years, I know that I had to start with the foundation and get that correct before I started framing the walls. So I think that's very helpful for me as a teacher. I do spend, a good bit of time preparing to teach a class. So I know, what the material is that I want to cover, and the longer I do it, the more creative I am in how I present that material. And some of that has been from watching other teachers, when they're explaining something and then they do this little demo, and I'm like, that's brilliant. I get it from watching you. So I add that, to my repertoire, and it's built up over the years. It's a weird thing. I am really an introvert. To step out in front of a class is not, the easiest natural place for me to go. But I also, I have Leo rising, so there's also part of me that likes to be up in front of the class. So I always get nervous before I teach, and usually by the time I have delivered the second paragraph, I'm just into the material and I'm excited about teaching it, and I'm grooving on the students, feeling, what's going on and their interest and their excitement about learning. And after that, it, gets hard to shut me up.
I just had a memory of you busting a move during our training. So I wanted to get into a recent thing that I got to attend, where you were doing a training on training the trainers, and
Right.
I would love just to get what that was like, developing it, and what it was like, what you got out of it yourself, and what that mentality shift kind of is from being a trainer to thinking about how do I train trainers.
Right. Right. Well, it's really, it's like the next step in the progression. Having been through 3 training cycles and going through that process of being trained as a trainer and then mentoring other people as they come along, it really felt quite easy and natural to put together that class on training the trainers. And again, I just kind of went back in my memory and thought, okay, if I hadn't taught at a training yet, what would be helpful for me to feel more comfortable and more competent to do that? So I spent time just kind of going through the basics of the flow of the training, how one intensive leads into another, and looked at one of the intensives in more depth and went through the classes and how they build on each other, and how in intensive 1, we really have, really basic beginners, and we need to teach at that level. And by the time we get to intensive 5, we have, more sophisticated students, and we teach to that level of sophistication. So we spent time there. We talked about some of those dynamics that we were just talking about, like the essence of a trainer and the roles and responsibilities, the different hats you wear when you're teaching at the training. And then, I had each of the, participants, each of the trainers in training, pick a class and do a, like 30-minute demo on teaching that class. And the beginning of that was, how did you prepare to teach this? I wanted them to understand that process of you preparing yourself to present the material that you were going to present, and everything to how you would set up the room where the students would be sitting, what kind of equipment you were going to need, all those little details that when you have them in place, your teaching experience has more flow to it. It just, you can spend the time on teaching the material rather than working out the logistics of how you're going to do that. And then I had them do a series session demo, again, like an abbreviated 30-minute thing. Like, okay, you're going to teach the students session 1. Okay, let's hear how you would do that, and I gave them a guideline. I want you to talk about the session itself, the context, the dialogue, the movement, and then I want you to go over the goals of the session, and then let's have you do a little body work and get a feel for how you can be doing the session and being engaged with the client or what would be the student model, and be teaching at the same time. And that's quite an art to give a good session to the person on your table, as while you're giving a good learning experience for the students watching the demo. So it was a great class. We had, really good participation. We have some really good new teachers stepping up. Some of them have been practicing for a long time. Some of them are fairly new. And I think it was good for them to take a look. I called it the nuts and bolts of teaching at the training, because I'm a nuts and bolts kind of guy. And I think that's what they got, something that feels concrete that they can start to grab a hold of.
Lots of construction puns in there.
I can't help it. I can't help myself.
Is there, do you have any hopes or visions of where you think this training might evolve into?
Well, I have lots of hopes. It's it's a complicated process, and there's lots of moving pieces, and it requires a lot of energy and a lot of people working together to make it happen. And one of my goals in doing this class of training the trainers is to keep that process moving, and to keep the trainings going, and to continue that level of quality, and in fact improve with each training. And the potential is unlimited, in terms of the setting at UCHA is a great setting for a career training program that is accredited by the National Health Education Standards Bureau. It's because of the accreditation that they have, they can offer federal financial aid, which we've never been able to do before we started teaching in Omaha. So that little niche could keep going and expanding. And I would love to see more trainings around the world. I personally have been waiting for Carrie to get a training in Hawaii, so I can go hang out in Hawaii and while training. I would love to see one in Europe and back in New Zealand. But it really takes the people to step up and fill those spaces. It's a challenging position to take on, and it requires time and energy and dedication and real desire to teach, to keep Hellerwork alive, to have it grow. It takes that kind of dedication to make it happen, because it's not the type of thing that you can step into and do halfway. And that takes special people. And I wonder where all those people are going to come from. I see some of them showing up now. I have great excitement for some of the practitioners that were students of mine to move into those roles, you being one of them. I think that with each training, these last 3 cycles, we have produced the best trained Hellerworkers that have ever been trained, and that's not a ego thing. It's just the way we have done it, the way we have been able to present the material, and to see these people really competent by the time that they finish the training. I have great hope that a bunch of those folks will move into those teaching roles and keep that thing going. So we'll see. Time will tell.
I'm curious because you kind of spoke to, and we kind of spoke about the essence of the trainer, but you spoke of certain essences that carried over from original Hellerwork training to this training. And there's been a lot of, you said there's a lot of more transparency and ease of delivery. But what do you feel are some of the essences of the Hellerwork training that might be different from other trainings?
Well, I think that, what we have always tried to hold in our work and teach in our trainings is that it's really a heart-centered approach and a heart-centered focus. And that although we are shifting and changing and balancing things in the body, what we really like to see is, people's hearts to open and them to truly inhabit who they are, as an individual, as a human being on this crazy planet that needs much more human beingness to move forward. So there's always that balance between the physical medicine and the emotional medicine, and certainly, movement is what we want in both of those things. We want the body to be able to move well and with ease, and we want the emotional body to be able to move with grace and ease. And because I think we hold all of that as we work, that's what makes us special, and that's what allows for the magic, for things to change that we weren't even looking at, or things to shift and open that we had no idea was available to open up. So it's always, for me anyway, it's always holding that that dynamic and that balance of the physical and the emotional, and of course the energetic and the spiritual and the cognitive are all intertwined with all of that.
High five. So I am curious where you are now. You are helping train in the trainers, what's going on in your life, your practice.
Well, I am, happily here in Seattle, and I practice, 3 days a week. I do 5 or 6 sessions in, each day in those 3 days. And then I have 4 days to do other things that I love to do. And that can be, hanging out with friends, taking a walk. I'm getting ready to do some big remodeling projects on my house. I try and play pickleball whenever I get the chance and some decent weather. My practice is a place that centers and grounds me. I love going into my office if I'm feeling kind of off or not quite fully present. I look forward to going into my office because I know I'll find that there. I've got more clients than I can handle. I'm wishing for some new practitioners to come out of the Seattle area. Um, and so I feel like I'm kind of in a sweet spot, in my work life and in my personal life. It feels nice. There's always challenges and there's always hard things and pain. But I feel, really blessed and, surrounded by abundance.
Beautiful.
It is.
And I'm asking everyone this question, but if you could pass on one ideal or technique that you've recently learned or think like, oh, I want everyone to know about this, what would it be?
Wow. Well, I think what has been getting my attention and focus a lot is really getting into the joints of the body and really trying to get a feel for what's going on in that joint capsule. And feeling, how it moves in all directions within that, and finding where the restrictions are, and really doing techniques to get the best function out of that joint. And you're always relating it to the whole limb, or the torso, as far as how that individual function will play out in that larger structure. But I've been having a lot of fun just like, going into a hip joint and grabbing hold of that femur and seeing how it plays in there, and taking it into a place where it doesn't like to go, and say, okay, what are you going to do now? Been avoiding this. Let's see what happens. So that's been a lot of fun lately, and I found it really gets good results in terms of the whole structure.
You find you listen differently when you focus specifically on a joint, and this is just me curious, is there certain techniques that you bring in that are specific to the joints?
Well, I really use more of that visceral cranial manipulation type of listening, where I'm listening at a subtler level. I'm not going through big, gross ranges of motion. I'm looking at little tiny ranges of motion and noticing where I feel the first little bit of resistance. And that, to me, is a really juicy place to play in, where that first barrier is, and getting that to release. So it is a subtler, more sensitive type of listening, and to me, that's a lot of fun.
Sounds like a good teaching technique.
I see you're trying to start up a class. I can tell.
Well, Joseph, I want to thank you for being here, and I'd love to just take a second to honor all the work, energy, and love you put in, and all of the people before you, all of the love, work, and energy, all of the people that have kept Hellerwork alive and given those gifts, because it's one of the greatest gifts that I received, and I'm very, very grateful.
Well, thank you, Greer. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you. So I've enjoyed it.
I know when you're in DC again.
I will. I will. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
All right. You're welcome.